It's been a while since I've read it. The Great River, Christianity and Paganism by Subdeacon Joseph Magnus Frangipani. By the time I arrive in New Delhi, leaping pockets of green slime lining the bus terminals, sailing through smoke of burning bodies, backpacking dog-infested cobblestone streets of Tibetan refugee camps, before happening upon remote caves at the source of the Ganges and discovering the wonders of the prayer of the heart, long before studying black magic and ashrams through the Rishikesh and forking roasted vegetables smeared with butter and rose petal, before shooting back and forth across sage deserts of Idaho by astral projection and offering fruit, fire, and rice before Krishna, Shiva, and the goddess of death. I will periodically disappear through the veil of shamanism. I will appear on Spirit Mountain outside Eugene, Oregon, coated in rain and bags and rags, barefoot, with a stick of incense behind my ear, offering our dog as sacrifice, with a handful of yak bone, beads, and bright feathers. I chalk the occult patterns of yantras and sit inside them. Yantra in Sanskrit literally means machine contraption. They adorn temple floors associated with specific demons and summon occult powers based primarily, but not exclusively, on Hindu astrology and numerology. Anything placed inside a yantra sits upon a spiritual trapdoor. Seated inside one of these machines or yantras, you blast off spiritually, mentally, sometimes physically, a willing conduit of demonic flight. Mantras, the Sanskrit syllables inscribed on yantras, are similar to GPS coordinates for the practitioner, or phone numbers yoking us to whoever or whatever is on the other end. Similarly, diving back into black cauldrons of cartomancy, unfolding my tarot deck, summoning Thoth, the Egyptian god, I assume knowledge of the future. So and so will meet you here on such a date. This or that will happen. The astrological association for the pointer finger is Jupiter. This symbolizes power and authority, so wear a tin ring on that finger and never gold. I concocted remedial tonics and teas from temples on moonlit nights. Sprinkle this on the forehead, rub that behind his ear. To strangers and friends it appeared I knew intimate patterns and cycles of desire, thoughts, auspicious dates, and providential occurrences. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. Holy Orthodoxy offers countless examples of demons appearing as angels. Determined as I am for direct experience, trusting without discernment, everything spiritual and seemingly non-material is good. I acted on my freedom without accountability. In Orthodoxy, we trust the prescribed medicine of holy tradition coming from Christ's body, the one in the Apostolic Church. We hold ourselves accountable before a spiritual father and confessor, distrusting so-called spiritual experiences, regarding ourselves unworthy. In the spiritual life, especially when conditioned to accept strictly materialistic, scientific, and rational explanations for everything, you either embrace what amounts to atheism or leap in the opposite direction, reading hundreds of books on Far Eastern mysticism and experiencing firsthand supernatural phenomena in thousand-year Hindu temples and ashrams. It is hard, as Elder Sophrony admits, and we shall see him as he is, to rid oneself of abbreviations of this kind. A practitioner of Eastern traditions before returning to Christ, he says, you are persistently haunted by the suspicion that the experiment was a failure because you were unable to strip yourself of all the transitory phenomena of cosmical experience. You ought to have put off your personality, considering it merely a temporary form of existence that restricts at every level. This is to say, as according to Buddhism, if the cause of suffering is desire and we must extinguish desire in ourselves, from an orthodox perspective, we must commit spiritual suicide. We have to destroy the soul because her God-given energies yearn for union with the divine. I could not do this. Meditation and yoga cleared and calmed the mind, but it never healed the heart and never unified me with Christ. It cannot, because the goal of yoga is self-divination, the opening of chakras so that the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, blossoms and you realize that you are God, you and God are identical, and that truly neither ultimately exist. The awakening of Kundalini energy, instrumental in Hinduism, is depicted in yoga as awakening the serpent. This is precisely the delusion Satan, in the form of a serpent, cast around our forefather and foremother Adam and Eve. They chose self deification apart from God, choosing their will, their path, and rejecting the uncreated path, who is Christ. I have no doubt many leap off the rusted, sinking boat of Western Christianity in search of bright and colorful fish, but the most colorful fish often are the most dangerous and the most poisonous. In its early October, I find myself inexplicably drawn to Kaji temple where the fearsome Kali, brandishing severed heads and hands, tongue lapping blood from a corpse, manifests inside a rock garlanded with tinfoil and smoke. Hinduism is a seemingly unending umbrella of many colors, encompassing complementary and opposing ideas, personalities, euthanistic rituals, the boundaries between the material and spiritual fluid and fleeting. I splash barefoot through split coconut, streams of water, flower petals, and broken candles. Swamis appear and disappear before my eyes. Children filed away in cages are draped in curtains of yogurt. Statues bleed outside in a festival of lights. Cows smeared with excrement and paint drink puddles of brown slime. The closer we draw near Kali's throne in a garlanded rock, eyes roll upward and away, tongues wag pink from mouths, and the mind confuses and twirls like a blender. A leprous claw grabs me, spins a web of red string around my wrist, pushes me backwards. It's late and I'm disoriented. I disappear from the temple and board the nearest bus, 15 hours north for Dharamsala, to the Dalai Lama's monastery. The abbot greets me with Tibetan yak butter tea and cookies. We discuss my work for the Tibetan National Library. The following week, I'm given astrological charts from the Dalai Lama's oracles living in Kangra Valley. You see their lights roaming red over the evening hills. We don't specify how or where, but you will suffer grave illness buried under your 13th year. Carts drag goat bones through the forest. Someone or something gathers cycles and patterns from my life. Yes, so and so greeted me here on such a day with fire. Smear this across your abdomen. Swallow those roots. Never look with your left eye at someone in yellow. All my life, I wondered not whether a spiritual world exists, because I knew it existed, and not how it exists, but how I might enter that other world. I will disappear from the Pacific Northwest and return to India and discover Christ in the Himalayas. Kali shrieks and falls like lightning when the prayer of the heart erupts spontaneously. The red wrapping around my wrist cut away with a knife melting into campfire. The devil has power over those who hand their will over to him. This was of extreme calm and focus. My personal direct experience of truth as someone who entered into human history, lived among us, and remains fully human but also fully God. Now, everywhere and entering personally into our lives, this experience in the faith soon discovered in the pre eternal church is true enlightenment. Life in Christ is not only enlightenment, it surpasses the created states of mind and offers purification, illumination of heart and mind, and growing in likeness and union in God. My journey into ancient Christianity amounts to 38 years, continues like the migratory pattern of swifts, swallows, and nightjars. I have long been interested why we struggle to escape the country of our birth and not knowing any other language or culture, cast off into uncharted territory. I've noticed we tend to spiritually migrate in regular seasonal movements, often east and west, between the conceptual and non conceptual, along a flyway between breeding and wintering grounds. But I am no longer fascinated by Eastern traditions such as yoga and meditation, Buddhism, Hinduism, and the occult. I continue rejecting Western Christianity as a paling shadow, embracing the constant light of Christ revealed through the ascetic and scriptural life peppered throughout Mount Athos, Romania, Serbia, Georgia, and Russia, Greece, and all over the world, especially here in North America, where shadows fall day and night. After backpacking frozen beaver ponds over Spruce Island in Alaska, created lights gradually dimming and fading, warming myself against the icons of the Mother of God, mind sharpening and pointing like a knife into bread. After discovering my spiritual father and confessor at seaside glaciers, pouring incense at dawn and the prayer of the heart, and falling and getting up, and falling and standing up, long after touching vestments of a Serbian bishop, who suddenly removed from my eyes a kind of spiritual curtain, and I saw things of which I am unworthy to speak and write about, and spooning yogurt with walnut and honey after marrying a wonderful woman, raising children, graduating seminary, and sailing across deserts to a monastery. I will periodically emerge from the divine liturgy carrying Christ on the altar of my heart. What can I say? Behind every crucifixion is a resurrection. It is necessary for us to suffer, not that we seek it out, but that we don't always run away, voluntarily following Christ to his crucifixion, studying not the minds and ideas of men, but the hearts of saints struggling to conform to God's revelation. Suppose we fast from everything, emptying clutter. The unquenchable desire remains. With our whole being, we thirst to know and be made known by God. The Lord stands at the chamber of the heart, never forcing himself, always waiting for us. He leaves when we say leave, and he returns as soon as we lean inward, hear him, and answer the door. Then our Christ holds out his robe of divine grace, drapes it over the heart, and places a ring on the finger and dines with us. In the Old Testament, we hear his voice, "My son, give me thy heart." Fed from this mystical honeycomb, the soul is no longer distressed or curious of faraway places because she experiences Christ everywhere. She at last reaches the great river, the fountain of immortality. Within the womb of holy tradition, you'll uncover great joy and suffering. You'll taste Christ, the healer and physician of souls and bodies, and a gentle warming in the heart will arrive or it won't. Our experiences in the church are allowed and given by God for our repentance, so that wandering the far country, we come to ourselves, body and soul together, preparing us so that we see the light that illumines the saints of our ancient Christianity walking in our midst. In this great cloud of witnesses, it is not a question of whether we see God, but whether Christ is the healing light and not darkening fire sailing through the smoke of this world. Howdy, everybody. God bless. Cutting off of the Passions, advice from Abba Dorotheus of Gaza from the 6th century BC. And this is from volume 26, The Death to the World. One of the great old men was at recreation with his one of the great old men was at recreation with his disciples in a place where there were cypresses of different shapes and sizes, some large, some small, and he said to one of his disciples, "Pull up that cypress tree over there." It was a very small one, and immediately the disciple pulled it up with one hand. Then the old man showed him another one larger than the first, and he said, "Pull up that one." Working it backwards and forwards with both hands, he pulled it up. The old man showed him yet a larger one, and with much more trouble he pulled that up too. Then he showed him an even larger one, and with much more labor, straining backwards and forwards and sweating profusely, he finally lifted that one too. Then the old man showed him still a larger one, but for all his energy and sweating he could not pull it up. And when the old man saw that he could not pull it up, he turned to another brother and told him to get up and help him. But even the two of them together could not pull it up. Then the old man said to all the brothers, "So it is with our evil desires. Insofar as they are small to start with, we can, if we want to, cut them off with ease. If we neglect them as mere trifles, they harden, and the more they harden, the more labor is needed to get rid of them. But if they grow to any degree of maturity inside us, we shall no longer be able to remove them from ourselves, no matter how we labor, unless we have the help of the saints interceding for us with God." Living corpses walk in our midst. Their souls have died before their bodies, and they have no hope of resurrection. For it is here that we prepare for the life of the world to come. And there are souls which already, as it were, risen from the dead before the death of the body. Through their acts, experience, and love, they gain access to the highest levels of spiritual life. Priest Alexander Elchananov, Diary of a Russian Priest. Paranormal. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph to his brothers who sold him into slavery, Genesis 50:20. When we hear about evil spirits, the devil, possession, the occult, and magic and spells, we do so generally under the influence of Hollywood. Yet the entertainment industry is concerned primarily with entertaining and shaping us for profit, not edifying and encouraging truth. Reputable historians, however, can offer strong foundations for uncovering the way things really are in the world. And sometimes, when we least expect it, their assessments illumine the world as well as ourselves. The greatest and most reliable source of history is, of course, Christ's eternal church. It is here we should look for correct or orthodox presentation on the spiritual life. Orthodox Christianity offers a worldview remarkably countercultural. Not only do good and evil exist as potentials, both correspond to our use or misuse of free will in relation to Christ and his church. Not only this, but there are angels and demons, spiritual warfare, and transfiguration. Of course, we can draw closer to the good, to the holy, to the sacred, and uncreated life of God, but we can also draw closer to the fallen, created energies. We might become fascinated by a realm otherworldly, opening ourselves to be recipients of great desire, terror, or sadness. In such, these confusing states were far from more susceptible to suggestion, magic, astrology, and the occult. This is dangerous. Take the story of Saint Cyprian and Justina. In the late 3rd century in Antioch and what is now Turkey, there lived a man named Aglaeus. The young man was son of a very wealthy parents and accustomed to receiving whatever he wished. One day, Aglaeus ran across a stunningly beautiful woman who was walking to church. Her name was Justina. Struck by the arrow of lust, Aglaeus pretended to do good and pursued her in hopes of gaining Justina's trust. Aglaeus constantly tried wooing her with fancy words and phrases. He spoke very cunningly, but Justina saw straight through Aglaeus. She rejected his attempts to court and marry her, knowing he was driven by sexual greed and impropriety. A stranger to defeat, Aglaeus dismissed her rejection and grew hot. Abandoning the facade of goodwill, Aglaeus attempted to rape Justina. He dragged her into his house, but to no avail. She screamed, and neighbors rushed to Justina's assistance. But our story doesn't stop here. Aglaeus, in a final act of desperation, enlisted a famous pagan magician. Aglaeus paid the sorcerer Cyprian large amounts of money to enchant Justina. Reassuring Aglaeus of his ability to influence Justina, Cyprian opened his grimoire, a clever book of spells, charms, magic, and divination, and invoked demonic spirits to corrupt her. And as Justina prayed at night, unnatural lust and desire for Aglaeus arose. Discerning these feelings as unnatural and strange, she reached out to God, made the sign of the cross, and prayed, saying, "Preserve thy sheep, O good shepherd. Do not give it over to be eaten by the beast who seeks to devour me." This beast returned to the sorcerer Cyprian, reporting, "I could not conquer her because I saw in her a certain sign of which I was afraid." Enraged, the devil sent 2 more demons towards Justina, whispering lies in her ear. Ashamed and enraged, Cyprian cursed Justina. He cursed her family and her city too. Cyprian called up misery and misfortune to shower over them, but Justina remained unmoved. Beginning to realize the power of the cross and God's loving protection over Justina, something good rose up in Cyprian's heart. The devil turned in its anger and tried to kill poor Cyprian, but remembering the prayers of Justina, Cyprian prayed to God and made the sign of the cross over himself. Although the evil spirit could threaten and taunt Cyprian, Cyprian was unharmed. So the next day, Cyprian ran to a bishop where he submitted himself in tears and confession for the evils he caused, repenting of his dark acts. In a great act of faith and repentance, Cyprian burned his grimoires and was baptized into the Orthodox Church. Cyprian was tonsured a reader, ascended to subdeacon and then deacon, as a loving shepherd of the very people he once attempted to exploit and murder. Similarly, Justina, in her love for Christ and his people, became a deaconess. But this is not the end of our story either. The same evil spirits summoned by Cyprian in his youth now attacked the governor of Nicomedia. The governor moved by these spirits Justina and Cyprian to death under false accusations. This was quite common during the persecution of Christians under the Roman Emperor Diocletian. Both Cyprian and Justinian faithfully and fearlessly bent their heads under the sword. Some witnesses of the execution, seeing their fearless devotion to Christ, fell down before the martyrs, dedicating their lives to Christ too. After their deaths, Cyprian and Justina were canonized as saints, standing as pillars of devotion and truth for all generations. As we might see from the story, the purpose of grimoires and black magic is to quickly produce a false sense of security and reality. In other words, deception and confusion, force and illicit desire. Cyprian used the grimoire with its promise of power, not realizing he was apart from Christ, powerless to the evil summoned from it. Grimoires are often noted for their deleterious effects that they have on the user, including injury, loss of sanity, and even death. These forms of magic, spells, and man made spirituality serve to fill a chasm in the human heart and mind. Whether it is a desire we cannot satisfy, a spiritual experience we seek, or revenge, or the summoning of the dead, or the intent to manipulate the world and our neighbors within it for our benefit, causes great harm. The imposition of our will onto another destroys spiritual progress and distances us from God and His energies. When we seek created energy instead of uncreated energy, when we seek our will instead of God's will, we strain and break relationships between ourselves, neighbors, society, and even Christ. In the back of Aglaeus's mind, undoubtedly, he would have had to live with the fact Justina never truly loved him. This small rift would widen into a chasm, and they might both have fallen into greater sin. Deception never produces good, long term fruit. It is only when we honor and respect free will and seek the uncreated God alone that we uncover the great and unshakable joy of Saint Cyprian and Justina. It is because she was baptized Christian with a heart overflowing with God's love, with a humble and repentant heart seeking union with Christ, that Justina was protected from demonic ruin. She was light in a dark place, and this light served as a guide for Cyprian. Not all of us are fortunate as Saint Cyprian. John Andreas Nothveit, vocalist of the satanic black metal death band Dissection, was a serious and committed student of the satanic grimoire. His final album, designed specifically to summon Satan with the intent to bring forth cosmic destruction. Nothveit's attachment to the black arts led to his violent death by suicide in August 2006. His body was discovered inside a circle of candles, a gun, and a grimoire. John Nothveit's writing revealed that he was convinced that a striking death was greater than a good life. In an unpublished interview 1 year before his death, John was asked what makes him happiest in life. His response was simple and direct: the end. He left behind a girlfriend and family filled with sorrow. Regrettably, his story is by no means unique. St. Cyprian might have ended his life like John Nothveit, but as Joseph in the book of Genesis had to suffer great things at the expense of his brothers, St. Justina was the thread holding St. Cyprian's life from unraveling. Even today, 2,000 years later, the story of these great saints inspires us to seek the great love of Christ. We can mirror St. Cyprian, repentance, and run toward the heartfelt confession and baptism. Black magic and sorcery are ineffectual in the presence of Christ. They're impotent, like the false promise of love through Cyprian's spell. The occult manipulates and confused, leading us through deceit to self-destruction. In contrast, the very essence of truth himself, Jesus Christ, receives us every Sunday in the Holy Eucharist of the Orthodox Church. Nikolai Gogol describes this divine encounter. At this moment, the Lamb of God comes to be slain for them. The divine blood is about to be poured into the chalice for their purification, and all the heavenly powers unite with the priest to pray for them. Upon receiving communion, Christ has come down with his body and entered the communicate's interior like as into a coffin. Christ is the lifeblood of the church, and where the black arts bring life to death, the Holy Eucharist brings death into life. Once you were dead because of your disobedience and your many sins. You used to live in sin just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil, the commander of the powers in the unseen world. He is the spirit at work in the hearts of those who refuse to obey God. All of us used to live in that way, following the passionate desires and inclinations of our sinful nature. By our very nature, we were subject to God's anger just like everyone else. Wage war. War should be waged ceaselessly and courageously. If you want to gain speedy and easy victory over your enemies, brother, you must wage ceaseless and courageous war against all passions, especially and preeminently against self love or a foolish attachment to yourself, manifested in self indulgence and self pity, for it is the bias and source of all passions and cannot for it is the basis and source of all passions, and cannot be tamed except by constant, voluntary, self inflicted sufferings, and by welcoming afflictions, privation, calumnies, persecutions by the world and by men of the world. Failure to see the need of this pitiless attitude to yourself has always been, is, and will be the cause of your failure to achieve spiritual victories, and of their difficulty, rarity, imperfection, and insecurity. So, the spiritual warfare of ours must be constant and never ceasing, and should be conducted with alertness and courage in the soul. They can easily be attained if you seek those gifts from God. So, advance into battle without hesitation. Should you be visited by the troubling thought of the hatred and undying malice which the enemies harbor against you, and of the innumerable hosts of the demons, think on the other hand of the infinitely greater power of God and his love for you, as well as the incomparably greater host of heavenly angels and the prayers of saints. They all fight secretly for us, and with us against our enemies, as it is written, the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Exodus 16. How many weak women and small children were incited to fight by the thought of this powerful and ever ready help? And they got the upper hand and gained victory over all the wisdom of the world, and all the wiles of the devil, and all the malice of hell. So you must never be afraid if you are troubled by a flood of thoughts that the enemy is too strong against you, that his attacks are never ending, that the war will last for your lifetime, and that you cannot avoid incessant downfalls of all kinds. Know that our enemies, with all their wiles, are in the hands of our divine commander, our Lord Jesus Christ, for whose honor and glory you are waging war. Since he himself leads you into battle, he will certainly not suffer your enemies to use violence against you and overcome you. If you do not yourself cross over to their side with your will, he will himself fight for you and will deliver your enemies into your hands. When he wills and as he wills, as is written, the Lord thy God walketh in the midst of thy camp to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Deuteronomy 14. If the Lord delays granting you full victory over your enemies and puts it off to the last days of your life, you must know that he does this for your own good. So long as you do not retreat or cease to struggle wholeheartedly, even if you are wounded in battle, do not lay down your arms and turn to flight. Keep only one thing in your mind and intention, to fight with all the courage and ardor, since it is unavoidable. No man can escape this warfare, either in life or in death, and he who does not fight to overcome his passions and his enemies will inevitably be taken prisoner, either here or yonder, and delivered to death. It is not without profit to bear in mind also the purpose for which God is pleased to leave us in this state of war. This purpose is the following: in the days of old, when God led Israel into the promised land, he did not order them to destroy all the peoples dwelling there, but left 5 tribes alien and hostile to Israel. First, to prove the chosen people and to see how firmly they believed in him and faithfully kept his commandments. And secondly, to teach his people the art of warfare. Judges 21:23, 1 through 2. In the same way, he does not destroy our passions at once, but leaves them in us, letting them fight against us till our very death, for just the same purpose, namely to prove our love for him and our obedience to his will, and to train us in spiritual warfare. The blessed Theodorite speaks of this in greater detail. God, he says, does this for the following ends: to prevent us from falling into carelessness and negligence, and to make us watchful, diligent, and attentive. to remind us that the enemy is ever ready to attack us, lest we unexpectedly find ourselves surrounded by the enemy and overcome by passions, so that we should always have recourse to God, asking and hoping for his help, so that we should not be proud but should think humbly of ourselves, so that we should learn to hate with our whole heart the passions and enemies which so tirelessly attack us, to prove whether we keep to the end God's honor, love, and faith, to urge us to a more strict observance of God's commandments so that we do not overlook the least of them, to learn from experience the great value of virtue, and so never to consent to abandon it and fall into sin, in order that constant warfare should give us the possibility to gain greater and greater crowns, that we should glorify God and shame the devil by our patience to the end, that we should get accustomed to warfare during life and so not fear it in the hour of death, when we are to be subjected to the hardest of all attacks. Thus, since we are always surrounded by so many enemies whose hatred of us is so bitter, we can expect no peace or respite from them, no cessation or postponement of attacks, but must be ready for an onslaught at any moment, and when it comes, must immediately engage the enemy with courage. Naturally, it would have been better if we had not originally opened the doors of our being and let enemies and passions enter our heart and soul. But since they have already found their way into us, we cannot afford to be negligent, but must arm ourselves against them to drive them out of us. They are shameless and stubborn and will not leave unless driven out by force. From the Unseen Warfare is edited by St. Nicodemus the Hagiorite and revised by St. Theophan the Recluse. Never kneel. Once upon an average morn, an average boy was born. For the second time, prone upon the altar there, he whispered up a prayer he kept inside. The vision came, he saw the odds, 100 little gods on a gilded wheel. These will vie to take your place, but Father, by your grace, I will never kneel. Steve Taylor. I unfortunately did kneel. I was raised in a very average Brady Bunch family. Mom had me, and my sister and dad had my older brother and sister. I was very excited to have a new father. My biological father died when I was 3 of an alcohol related heart attack. And a new brother and sister. We did not live happily ever after. My brother, feeling jealous and angry at the separation of his family and having to come and live with a new family, took it upon himself to punish everyone else for this. He proceeded to torment my existence in every way he could. I was emotionally and physically abused by him until I was 13 years old. I developed into a deathly insecure adolescent. I lived in my own fantasies and other realities that I had created. He couldn't hurt me there. I went to church every Sunday and most Wednesdays, and I sang and listened but heard nothing. Even there, I was in my own reality. It was about this time that I left the geek scene and entered the punk scene. Punks were the only people who ever treated me with respect and didn't run me down. I went from polo shirts to a blue mohawk and combat boots. This was 1986 in a rural cow town in Oregon. I was then tormented by everyone in town. My brother had been replaced. Because of my individuality, I was shot, stabbed, and beaten. One day, a friend of mine invited me to a party of sorts. This party consisted of some of my friends from school and 2 older ladies. It was described to me as friends sitting around and talking, drinking soda, eating chips, and playing games. The 2 older women were witches, and the party was a gathering of a coven. I was then initiated into the practice of Wicca. If you don't know, Wicca is an ancient feminine dominated form of druidical magic. This is why I was called a witch and not a warlock. I progressed rather rapidly and became a practicing witch. My mind sank into a strange sort of delirium and dementia. It was obvious to me that insanity was the ultimate experience. If you die, it's all over. If you go insane, you pass through death without dying. This was my philosophy. I strove hard for it day and night. My practice of witchcraft took me to many new places, mostly through astral travel. It was a natural expansion of my fantasy world. I was all powerful, and everything looked up to me in this world that I had created. The feeling of power is what keeps you going in witchcraft. In the real world, I was nothing. In witchcraft, I was something. I felt invincible. I was wrong. One night I woke up due to a rather strong call of my bladder. This was one of those times when you lay in bed and switch from looking at the clock and then looking at the door, trying to decide if you can make it until morning without wetting the bed. I decided to get up and go to the bathroom. I then realized that my entire body was paralyzed from the neck down. In Wicca, there are no drugs or alcohol. If you would be found using these things, you would be expelled from the coven. I knew that I had nothing in my system that could cause this. The only explanation I could come at was something spiritual was attacking me. I left my body and suspended myself above it. I then went into shock. Sitting all around me and holding me down were about 15 demons, laughing hysterically. One turned and looked at me and spoke. It said I was the biggest bleeping idiot that it had met in a long time. It said that I was taught what was right, but went the wrong way, and now I was so deep into it, I was going to hell and there was no way out. He then proceeded to make a deal with me. Two of them came to my astral body and turned me around. When I was turned around, I found myself in hell. There was no way to describe what I saw, what I felt, what I smelled. I will never forget it. The faces, they returned me to my room and gave me the ultimatum. I can kill myself and become like them in torment instead of being tormented, or die and go to hell anyway. I chose suicide. Just before they let me return to my body, I said under my breath, Jesus, if you're there, help. There was a great flash of light and they were gone. I sat up and began to curse God. Why did he let me go through these things? I cursed him for about an hour while I cleaned up the vomit my body expelled during the experience. It was then that I, for the first time, heard the voice of God. He said only one simple phrase that stopped me in my tracks. All I wanted you to do was ask. Colin Ivy, Portland, Oregon. Thanks for joining me, brothers and sisters. It's only 7:54. Maybe we should read from the Bible. Let me grab my Bible. It's funny that word patience just kept coming to me tonight. Have patience. When I got home, I prayed to God. I told him I don't know if I can keep fighting like this. I keep trying to find something else to do to get away from my bad situation. I'm hoping everything works out, and I need to pray to God to have patience. I think I read Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Israel and Jerusalem, the vanity of life. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What advantage does a man have in all his labor, in which he toils for under the sun? A generation comes and a generation goes, but the earth stands forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and returns to its place. The wind rises and goes toward the south and swirls toward the north, and the wind whirls in a circular motion and returns full circle. All the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea shall not be filled. To the place where the rivers flow, there they return again. All words are wearisome, and a man will not be able to say them. Neither will the eye be satisfied with seeing, nor the ear be filled with hearing. And what has been will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. who will speak and say, see, this is new, for it has already been seen in the ages that have come to pass before us. There is no remembrance of former things, and indeed there shall be no remembrance of latter things, by the things that will come after that. Futility of man's wisdom. The preacher was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I gave my heart to seek out and to prepare myself in wisdom concerning all the things done under heaven. For God has given painful distraction to the sons of men to be occupied therewith. Behold, all the works done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, and is the choice of one spirit. That which has become crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I spoke in my heart, saying, behold, I have become great, and I have acquired wisdom beyond all before me in Jerusalem. And my heart has experienced much wisdom and knowledge. I gave my heart to know wisdom and knowledge, to learn proverbs and understanding. And this too was waywardness of spirit. For in the abundance of wisdom there is an abundance of knowledge, and he who increases knowledge will increase suffering. The vanity of merriment. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with merriment, and to see if this is good. And behold, this too is vanity. Said concerning laughter, this is madness. And concerning merriment, what does this accomplish? I searched in my heart that I might excite my fleshes with wine, and my heart guided me with wisdom to grasp what is foolishness, until I might see what is good for the sons of men, that which they should do under the sun all the days of their life. I made my works great. I built myself houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made pools of water for myself from which to water growing trees. I acquired male and female servants, and servants were born in my house. And I had abundant possessions of herds and flocks, more than all before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered silver and gold for myself, and the abundant treasures of kings and countries. I provided male and female singers for myself, the delights of sons of men, and male and female cupbearers. So I became great and advanced beyond all before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom established me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I did not withhold my heart from any merriment, for my heart was made glad in all my labor, and this was my portion from all my labor. Then I looked on all the works of my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled, and indeed all is vanity, and is the choice of one spirit. There was no profit under the sun. Wisdom excels foolishness. Then I turned myself to consider wisdom, madness, and foolishness, for who is the man who will follow after counsel, whatever it is to do it? Then I saw that wisdom excels foolishness as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the senseless man walks in darkness, and indeed know that one event happens to them all. So I said in my heart, as it happens to the senseless man, so it happens to me. Why then have I gained abundant wisdom? Then I said in my heart, this indeed is also vanity, because the senseless man speaks of his abundance. For there is no remembrance forever of the wise man or of the senseless man, since now as in the days to come all things are forgotten, and how will the wise man as well as the senseless man face death? Thus I have hated my life, because the work done under the sun was evil before me, for all is vanity and is the choice of one spirit. That I hated all my labor in which I toiled under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who comes after me. For who knows whether he shall be a wise man or a senseless man? Yet he will have authority over all my labor in which I toiled, and wherein I grew wise under the sun. Indeed, this is also vanity. So I turned my heart and despaired of all the labor wherein I toiled under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is with wisdom, knowledge, and courage. Yet this man shall give his portion to one who has not labored therein. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what does a man have for all his labor and his purpose of heart wherein he labors under the sun? For all his days are sorrowful, and the distraction of his life is his. For even in his night his heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy in his labor. This also I saw from the hand of God, for who will eat or who will drink without him? And he gives wisdom, knowledge, and gladness to a man who is good in his sight. But to him who commits sin, he gives the job of gathering and collecting, that he may give to the man who is good in God's sight. This is also vanity and is the choice of one's spirit. A time for everything. To everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to pull down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. The gifts of God. What profit has the worker from all his labors? I have seen altogether the tasks which God has given the sons of men to be engaged in. He made everything beautiful in its time, and he indeed put eternity in their hearts in such a way that man may not find out the work God made from the beginning to the end. I know there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and do good in their lives. Indeed, every man should eat and drink and experience the good in all his labor. This is God's gift to him. I know that whatever things God does, they shall be forever. Nothing can be added or taken away from these things, for God did them that men would fear before him. What is has already been, and what is to be has already been, and God will require an account of what is past. God judges all. Moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment. The ungodly man was there. I also saw the place of the righteous man. The ungodly man was not there. I said in my heart, God will judge both the righteous man and the ungodly man, for there is a time for every action and every work. I said in my heart concerning the speech of the sons of men, God will judge them so as to show them that indeed they are themselves like animals. For what happens to the sons of men also happens to animals. One thing befalls them as is the death of the one, so also is the death of the other. And there is one breath to all. So what advantage does a man have over an animal? For all things are vanity, all go to one place, all are from the dust, and all return to the dust. Who knows the spirit of the sons of men, whether it goes upward, and the spirit of the animal, whether it goes downward to the earth? So I saw that there was no good except that a man should rejoice in his works, for that is his portion. For who shall bring him to see what happens after him? Those oppressed. Then I returned and saw all the oppressions done under the sun. Behold, the weeping of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of the oppressors was power, but they have no comforter. So I praise those who are already dead more than the living, as many as are alive until now. Better than both these is he who has not yet been born, who has not seen all the evil work done under the sun. Again, I saw all the labor and all the courage of the worker, that is the zeal of a man because of his companion. This is also vanity and is the choice of one's spirit. The senseless man folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. Better is a handful of rest than two handfuls of labor, and it is the choice of one's spirit. Then I returned and saw vanity under the sun. There is one, and there is not a second one. And he has neither son nor brother, and there is no end to all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with wealth, but he never asks, for whom do I labor and deprive myself of goodness? This also is vanity and a painful distraction. The treasure of friendship. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for there is not a second one to help him up. If two lie down together, both stay warm, but how can one stay warm alone? If one has added strength, two will stand before him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. An unlikely king. Better is a poor and wise youth than an old and senseless king who will no longer take advice. For this youth shall come from the house of prisoners to reign. Even through his kingdom he was born poor. I saw all the living who walk under the sun, and they were with the youth who will be established in the king's place. There was no end to all the people over whom he was made king, yet those who come afterward will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and is the choice of one's spirit. Draw near to God. Walk carefully when you go to the house of God and draw near to hear, rather than to offer the sacrifice of the senseless men, for they do not know what they do is evil. Do not be hasty with your mouth, and do not let your heart be quick to utter a word before God, for God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few. For a dream comes in a multitude of distractions, and the voice of a senseless man is with a multitude of words. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for his will is not in senseless men, so pay whatever you vowed. Better not to vow than to vow and not pay. Do not let your mouth cause your flesh to sin, and do not say in the presence of God it was a mistake. Why should God be angry at your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For in a multitude of dreams there are vanities and many words, but you should fear God. The vanity of riches. If you see the oppression of the poor and the violation of judgment and righteousness in the land, do not marvel at the matter, for there is a high official to watch over a high official, and a higher one to watch over them. Moreover, the abundance of the earth is for all, even a king depends on work in the field. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves the harvest with its abundance. This is also vanity. In the abundance of good things, they who eat them also increase. But what virtue does the owner have from them, except to see them with his eyes? The sleep of a servant is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of rich will not permit him to sleep. There was sickness I saw under the sun, wealth kept for its owner to his hurt. That wealth shall perish in painful distraction. And he begets a son, but there is nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor, that it may go with him in his hand. This also is a painful sickness, for as he came, so shall he go, and what is his gain for which he hath labored for the wind? All his days are in darkness and sorrow, and in much anger, sickness, and gall. Behold, I have seen good. It is a fine thing for a man to experience goodness in all his labor, in which he toils all the days of his life that God has given him, for it is his portion. As for every man to whom God has given wealth, possessions, and authority to eat from it, to receive his portion, and to rejoice in his labor. This is a gift of God, for he will not remember the many days of his life, because God distracted him in the merriment of his heart. There is an evil I have seen under the sun, and it is abundant among men. A man to whom God shall give wealth, possessions, and glory, so he lacks nothing for his life from all the things he shall desire. Yet God does not give him the power to eat of it, but a stranger consumes it. This is vanity and a grievous sickness. If a man begets 100 children, and he shall live many years, however many the days of his years shall be, yet his soul is not to be filled with goodness, and he also has no burial. I say that a miscarried child is better than he, for it came in futility and departs in darkness, and its name shall be covered with darkness. Though it has not been seen, though it has not seen the sun or known anything, it has more rest than that man. Even if he lived 1,000 years twice, but has not seen goodness, do not all go to one place? All the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet his soul is not satisfied. For what advantage does the skilled man have over the unskilled man, since even this poor man knows how to keep himself alive? Better is the sight of eyes than the wandering of the soul. This also is vanity, and is the choice of one's spirit. If anything has come to be, its name has already been used, and it is known what man is, that he is unable to dispute with him. Who is stronger than he, since there are many words that multiply vanity? What advantage does man have? For who knows what is good for man in his life, for all the days in his life, which pass like a shadow, are spent in vanity? Who can tell a man what will happen under the sun after he is gone? A good name is better than good olive oil, and the day of one's death and the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of drinking, for this is the end of every man, and the living will take it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of senseless men is in the house of merriment. It is better to hear the rebuke of a wise man than for a man to hear the song of senseless men. For like the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of a senseless man. This is also vanity. Oppression makes a learned man dizzy and destroys his vigorous heart. The end of matters is better than their beginning, and a patient man is better than one haughty in spirit. Do not be hasty in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of senseless men. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this. Wisdom is good with an inheritance and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom in its shadow is as the shadow of silver. But the abundance of knowledge of wisdom will give life to him who has it. Behold the works of God, for who can put in order him whom God made crooked? In the day of what is good, live in that goodness, but in the day of trouble, consider also that God made one harmonious with the other, that a man may not find out anything that will come after him. I saw everything in my days of vanity. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is an ungodly man who remains alive in his vice. Do not be overly righteous nor overly wise, lest you be confounded. Do not be very ungodly nor be hardened, lest you die before your time. It is good that you lay hold of this and do not let your hand to go let go of it. For the one who fears God, all things will turn out well. Wisdom will help the wise more than 10 rulers in the city, for there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and does not sin. Also, do not take to heart the works. Do not take to heart the words people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For very often he will act in an evil manner against you, and many times he will afflict your heart, just as you have cursed others. I proved all this by wisdom. I said I will be wise, but it was far from me. As for what is far off and exceedingly deep, who will find it out? I and my heart went about to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the account of things and to know the foolishness, hardness, and madness of ungodly men. I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare for her heart, a net. I find more bitter than death the woman who is a snare, and her heart a net, and her hands are as chains. A man who is good in the sight of God will escape from her, but the sinner will be caught by her. Behold, I found this, says the preacher, adding one thing to the other to find out the reason, which my soul still seeks but cannot find. I found one man among 1,000, but a woman among these I have not found. Except, behold, I found this, that God makes man upright, but they sought out many schemes. Who knows the wise and who knows the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom makes his face shine, and a man shameless in the face will be hated. Keep the king's commandment and spare no effort for the sake of your oath to God. You will go out from his presence, but do not stand with an evil thing, for the king will do whatever he pleases. In so far as the king has authority, he speaks, and who will say to him, why will you do this? He who keeps his commandment will not know an evil thing, and a wise man's heart knows the time of judgment. For to every matter there is a time and a judgment, because the knowledge of man lies heavily upon him. For there is no one who knows what is going to be, for who will tell him how it shall be? No one has authority over his spirit to withhold his spirit, and no one has authority in the day of his death. There is no discharge in that war, and ungodliness will not save those given to it. I saw all this and gave my heart to every work done under the sun, wherein one man has authority over another man to injure him. Death visits all. Then I saw the ungodly buried in their tombs and brought from their holy place and praised in the city for what they had done. But this is also vanity. For no controversy comes quickly against those who do evil. Therefore, the heart of the sons of men is fully determined within them to do evil. Whoever sins does evil from that time on and for a long time afterwards. Nevertheless, I know that it shall be well for those who fear God, so long as they have fear before him. But it shall not be well with the ungodly man. He will not prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he does not have fear before God. There is a vanity that is done on earth. There are the righteous as when the work of the ungodly overtakes them, and there are the ungodly as when the work of the righteous overtakes them. I said that this also is vanity. So I praised merriment, because a man has nothing better to do under the sun than to eat, drink, and be merry. For this will be present with him in his labor all the days of his life that God gives him under the sun. For this reason I committed my heart to know wisdom and to see the distractions done on earth. Nevertheless, he receives no sleep day or night. Then I saw all the works of God, that a man cannot discover how he does his work under the sun. No matter how much a man labors to discover it, yet he will not find it out. And no matter how much a wise man may speak of not knowing it, he will not be able to find it out. For I gave my heart to all this, and my heart saw all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hands of God. Whether it be love or hatred, man does not know it, although all things are before him. Vanity is in all things. One event happens to the righteous man and the ungodly man, to the good man and the evil man, to the pure man and the impure man, to the man who sacrifices and the man who does not sacrifice. As is the good man, so is the man who sins. As is he who takes an oath, so is he who fears an oath. There is this evil in everything done under the sun, that one event happens to all, and truly the heart of the sons of men are full of evil. Madness is in their heart while they live, and afterwards they go to the dead. For who has fellowship with all the living? There is hope for a living dog. There is hope for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward. For the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love, hatred, and envy have now perished, and they have no portion forever in all that is done under the sun. Go eat your bread with merriment and drink your wine and be happy, and with a happy heart. For now God is well pleased with your works. Let your garments be always white, and let your head lack no oil. Experience life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he gave you under the sun, all your days of vanity, for that is the portion of life and the labor you performed under the sun. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might, for there is no work, or reasoning, or knowledge, or wisdom in Hades, where you are going. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor wealth to the men of understanding, nor favor to men of knowledge, for time and chance will happen to them all. For man also does not know his time, like fish taken in a cruel net, like birds caught in a snare. So the sons of men are snared in an evil time, when it falls suddenly upon them. Wisdom is better than strength. I saw this wisdom under the sun, and it is great to me. There was a little city with a few men in it, and a great king came against it and surrounded it and built great barricades around it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and by his wisdom he rescued the city. Yet no one remembered that poor man. Then I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of the wise are heard in quietness, more than the shouting of those who rule in foolishness. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much goodness. Dead flies will corrupt the preparation of seasoned olive oil, and a little wisdom is more valuable than the glory of great foolishness. A wise man's heart is at his right hand, but the heart of a senseless man is at his left. When a senseless man also walks along the way, his heart will fail him, and everything he considers is foolishness. If the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your place, for soothing puts an end to great sins. There is an evil I saw under the sun when an offense proceeds from a ruler. The senseless man devotes himself to great heights, and a rich man shall sit in lowly place. I saw servants on horses and princes walking on the ground like servants. He who digs a pit will fall into it, and he who pulls down a wall will be bitten by a serpent. He who removes stones will be worn out by them, and he who cuts down trees will be endangered by them. If the axe head falls off, then his countenance is troubled, and he will put forth more strength, and in that case skill is of no advantage to the man. If the serpent bites when it is not charmed, then there is no advantage to the charmer. The words of a wise mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool shall swallow him up. The words of his mouth begin with foolishness, and the end of his talk is evil madness. A senseless man multiplies words. No man knows what is to be, and who will tell him what will be after him? The labor of fools wears them out, for they do not even know how to go to the city. Woe to you, O city, whose king is young, and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobles, and your princes feast at the proper time and strength. They will not be dishonored. Because of laziness, the roofing will be brought low, and through idleness of hands, the house will not leak. They make bread for laughter, and wine delights the living, but all will listen to money. Do not curse the king even in your conscience. Do not curse the rich even in your bedroom, for a bird of the air will carry your voice, and a bird in flight will tell the matter. Cast your bread upon the water. Cast your bread upon the face of the water, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for you do not know what evil there will be on the earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they pour it out upon the earth, and if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it shall lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, he who sees the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the way of the wind, or how the bones grow in the womb of her who is with child, so you do not know the works of God, even in all things whatever he will do. In the morning sow your seed, and in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, either this or that, or whether both alike will be good. The light is sweet, and it is good for the eyes to behold the sun. For if a man lives many years and rejoices in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that comes is vanity. Follow God in your youth. Be glad, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know for all this that God will bring you into judgment. Therefore, remove anger from your heart and pass by evil with your flesh, for youth and lack of understanding are vanity. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come, and the years arrive when you say, I have no will to face them. While the sun and the light, the moon and the stars are not darkened, and the clouds do not return after the rain. And the day when the keepers of the house tremble, and the men of strength who would led astray, when the women who grind the grain become idle because they are few, when the women who look out the windows will remain in darkness, when the doors are shut in the marketplace, and the sound of grinding is low, when one rises up at the sound of a sparrow, and all the daughters of song are brought low. Also they will look from the height, and there are terrors in the way. When the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper grows fat, and the caper plant is scattered. For man goes to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the marketplace. Remember your Creator until the silver cord is removed, and the golden flour is pressed together, and the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, and the wheel runs together at the well. Then the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Vanity of all vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. Because the preacher was wise more than others, he taught the people knowledge, and the ear will search out his well ordered proverbs. The preacher sought diligently to find desirable words, and what was written is upright. They are words of truth. The words of the wise are pointed sticks, like nails firmly fastened. They are given from the collections and abound from them by one shepherd. Moreover, my son, guard yourself, for there is no end to the making of many books, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole man. For God will bring every work into judgment, including everything that has been overlooked, whether it be good or evil. God bless you, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining me tonight. Just thinking all this work, all my 18 years of work that I did, all of that was vanity. And I shouldn't be upset that that it's all taken away from me. For it all becomes dust. My hope is that I can do something to help others with the life that I have left. I want to do something to help my brothers and sisters. I just want to do some good. I love you all so much, and I know God loves you more than I'll ever be able to express. I'm just a wretched and unworthy sinner trying to share some of the things that I keep learning and keep studying so that I can do better, to help try to keep myself on the narrow path. But I know I'm a wretched and unworthy sinner, and I need to pray to God for strength in all the things that I try to do good. Don't forget to repent, because we don't know how much time we have on this earth. Love even your enemies. Do as much good as you can. Always pray to God and ask Him to help. He's everywhere and fill us to all things. He's always around us. He loves you all. God bless. I hope to see you on the next one, God willing.